In the summer of 1773, a Scotsman walked into London carrying 3 books. Nobody in Europe had read them for more than 1,000 years. He said he found them in the mountains of Ethiopia. London decided he was lying. They gave him a nickname, the Abyssinian Liar. It stuck to him for the rest of his life. So how does a book vanish from every Bible in Europe and stay in Ethiopia's the whole time? His name was James Bruce, 6'4", red-haired, and famously arrogant. He spent years crossing Africa, looking for the source of the Nile. He reached Gondar in 1770 and believed he had found it. But the thing he carried home that mattered most was not a river. In Ethiopia, he heard that the churches still kept a book Europe had lost. A book written in the name of Enoch, the man who, in Genesis, does not die. Bruce asked for copies. He was given 3. They were written in Ge'ez, the ancient language of the Ethiopian church. Back in Britain, he told people what he had seen in Abyssinia: court intrigue, lions, raw meat cut from living cattle. It was too strange. The room laughed. When he published his travels in 1790, 5 volumes, scholars called it exaggerated nonsense. He died 4 years later, still called a liar. One of the copies went to the Bodleian Library in Oxford and sat there, untranslated, for 48 years. In 1821, a professor of Hebrew named Richard Laurence finally translated one. And what came out was not a quiet devotional book. And then there is the part that stops people. Open the New Testament, the letter of Jude, verses 14 and 15. Jude quotes Enoch directly, word for word from its first chapter. A book inside the New Testament quotes a book that is not in the Bible. Scholars have argued for 2 centuries about what that means. They do not argue about the quote. So what is actually inside it? It describes angels called watchers who came down and took human wives. It names them Semyaza, their leader, and Azazel, who taught men to make swords. The watchers taught metalwork, cosmetics, astrology, and the cutting of roots. Knowledge given too early to people who were not ready for it. Their children were giants, and the world drowned because of them. But Enoch is not one book. It is a small library bound as one. One section maps the sun through a year of 364 days. There are dream visions and a long closing letter. So this is where the story you have heard usually goes wrong. People say the church banned it, erased it, voted it out behind closed doors. There is no such vote. No surviving council decree names this book and forbids it. What actually happened is quieter and stranger. Early Christian writers used it freely. Tertullian defended it around the year 200. Then Jerome called it apocryphal, and Augustine rejected it outright. And slowly, the Greek and Latin churches simply stopped copying it. A book that nobody copies does not need to be banned. It just stops existing. And it had never been in the Jewish canon either. You cannot remove a book from a list it was never on, except in one place where they never stopped copying. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, 81 books. Enoch is one of them. Their Bible also keeps Jubilees and 3 books of Maccabean you have probably never heard of. And Beta Israel, the Jewish community of Ethiopia, kept Enoch too. Which leaves the question Bruce died without an answer to. Was the Ethiopian book actually ancient, or a late invention, as his critics assumed? The answer came out of the desert above the Dead Sea, beginning in 1947. In 1952, Bedouin found Cave 4. Inside were Aramaic fragments, 11 manuscripts of Enoch material, catalogued 4Q201 through 4Q212. In the same caves lay the Book of Giants, a story that had grown out of it. The oldest were written around 200 years before Christ. Older than the Gospels, older than Paul's letters. This book was being read in Judea before the New Testament existed. Bruce was telling the truth. So was Ethiopia. There was no ban. There was no burning. There was no secret council. There was a book that the copyists of Europe let go of, and one church in the highlands of Africa that never did. So the mystery was never who erased it. It is why we assume a book must have been taken from us when it was simply never ours.